So I'm going to add a little bit of addition to cranial lymphatic massage. Dr. Perrin, in his book about chronic fatigue syndrome, makes sure that we know that there's a pivot right about here in the bone. And by rolling that up and down, we get a sagittal suture lymphatic that will begin to drain. So add rocking up and down here after we do all the other nice lymphatic massages that have been demonstrated in very nice videos on YouTube. Thank you, Remission Biome. So a sagittal suture lymphatic is in the skull, right in the space where the bones can actually move in and out a little bit. You can actually map, 2 fingers along the sagittal suture and find out where is it stuck. And to release it, this 6-vector technique is you try up or down, which goes easier, up, left or right, rotate or rotate. And then above it, you can take another spot along that same lymphatic vessel that's congealed, rubbery, and stuck, and move up or down, left or right, clockwise or counterclockwise. And once you get 6 vectors, plus the 2 vectors of pressing, which makes 8 vectors out of 12 possible directions, the lymphatic between these 2 places starts to line because the entire collagen system of the body gets a magnetic boost as we follow the twisted directions. Following the twisted directions gives the magnetic field of the whole sheet, the whole polymer, a boost, and then it'll sort of bring things back to the midline. So you hold each of these positions when using 2 hands for about 20 to 30 seconds. Then you move up higher and you see, okay, is there anything stuck? Oh, that's kind of sticky here. Left or right, up or down, rotate or rotate. And then I'll take my other hand on the top and I'll go, okay, left or right, left, forward or back, forward, clockwise or counter. There we go. And then the feel kicks in and you'll feel this little energy tingle. You may not believe it at first. The hard part is remembering 3 directions in each hand. And then it's like, okay, now I'm feeling that lymphatic system started to move from the top of the head. Right, and so you go all the way back to the back of the head. The second big lymphatic system is the coronal suture lymph vessel. And that starts sort of right in front of the ears. There's a little space between the frontal bone and the parietal bone. There's a little groove in the middle. And you can start here and here. And again, it's up or down. This goes up, forward or back, rotate. And that really rotates that way. Or you could start rotate, and then up, and then back. Okay, so now I've got my 6, and it's like, oh, I'm not quite dizzy, but, I'm sort of swaying because the whole magnetic field of your body is sort of like a radar antenna, a compass, needle. And 9, 11, 12, 17. Once the field's on, you can sort of wiggle anything, and that will sort of give another wave. Think of like the waves coming in on the shore. Then you work your way up to the top. The third vessel is in the groove of the middle meningeal artery. So you start above the eyebrows and you come up in diagonal and back to where the coronal suture meets the sagittal suture here. So we usually start down here, above the corner of your eyebrows, and go, okay, up or down, up or down, up, forward or back, forward, rotate, that way, and that way. Oops, there the feel comes in, and it's like, oh, that's really nice. And you work your way up. There's 3 lymphatics at the base of the occiput. So the base of the skull is from about the level of the ear back, and there's 3 circles. To be able to get that, you have to find the right side of the occiput and the left, and then these are twisted relative to each other. So up or down, down, medial or lateral, lateral, clockwise or counterclockwise, up or down, doesn't seem to move either, in or out, out, clockwise, there's clockwise, now up or down. So I got 3 vectors, and then the 2, I call them teacups, and the back of the skull begin to release. And those is the most important for myalgic encephalopathy, which is these 3 lymphatic vessels at the base of the skull are concentric and they leak. So the glue in the lymphatic vessels that our 100 lymphatic enzymes cannot digest spills out and congeals and hardens inside the base of the skull, giving an extra layer of hardness to the base of the skull. The base of the skull can't move. Because this is blocked here, the heat above it builds, and the white matter and fiber bundles of our brain just starts melting and pours down the back. And we do not have a well-developed lymphatic vessel system on the back of the neck. So it spills over the entire neck muscles and down the trapezius muscle, and then goes down the back to the middle of the vertebral, the thoracic vertebrae. So we end up with myelin mixed with lymph turning inflamed, and it turns into arachidonic acid, and then the acid triggers inflammation, and then there's like a forest fire going on inside our muscles, and that starts eating into the muscles, eating into the ligaments and where the muscles attach to bone, and eating to tendons and ligaments, and then that's where the sort of cranial cervical instability feeling comes from, because there's actually an acid-like phenomena eating into the very structure that holds our neck on right in balance. My neck was not this loose before, COVID. So add that to your sort of lymphatic massage techniques, and you get into the skull layer of the lymphatics. There's another level on the meninges, a thick layer over the surface of the brain. So you have to imagine the whole hemisphere underneath it. Luckily, 2 hemispheres are round, so we're feeling for something round that's inside the skull. It's like, okay, wiggle it around. Pretend your skull is like a bowl of Jell-O. If you're walking with a bowl across the kitchen floor, the Jell-O is going to shake a little bit on the inside. So you actually can feel inside a glass bowl that there's Jell-O on the inside shaking. And the brain is the consistency overall of Jell-O. It's like, okay, there's the surface of my brain. So now I'm going to just grab my 2 hemispheres, wherever I want. And it's the same thing, clockwise or counterclockwise, clockwise or counterclockwise. Medial or lateral, medial, medial or lateral, medial, forward or back, forward or back, back. So there's a little asymmetry in how the skull gets twisted and how this lymphatic layer in the meninges, one of the membranes on top of the skull, has some gluey gel-like fluid material in it that's picking up from the inside of the brain onto this membrane that's rests on the surface of the brain, and then it ends up in the skull, cleared out from that. This middle meningeal artery groove lymphatic is cleaning out your whole frontal lobe. So if this is stuck, you're not going to get the goop out of your right frontal lobe. You'll have trouble getting from here to there. On this side, your left frontal lobe, if this middle meningeal artery groove lymphatic is stuck, you'll have trouble putting the steps together to be able to remember, okay, what do I do next? So, add some joy, move your aorta under your collarbones, get some elasticity here, and work it out. And that'll help the lymphatics drain too. So you can use any big vessel to help move, the lymphatic tissues. Everything is sort of connected. And the more elastin there is in our collagen, the more the elastin can stretch and move and rotate and get the stiffness that's been taped onto our structure by the spike protein polymers of COVID-19. We can get those sticky polymers to pull apart and take your boromycin and see this little circular saw blade start chopping up the proteins. This budesonide steroid will pull the polymers apart. The minocycline will reduce overall inflammation in the brain, but the erythromycin with the boron in the middle is holding 4 oxygens, and there's 13 oxygens on the saw blade, and it spins and cuts, and when it gets inside our white blood cells where the phagocytes, the little balloons where we generate oxygen, ozone, chlorine gas, hydrogen peroxide, gets this boromycin coming with 13 additional oxygen, and boom, it catalyzes an explosion that destroys spike protein. It breaks it in pieces small enough that it can actually leave through our kidneys more readily than getting stuck in our liver, which is already clogged, or we can't really get into our intestines, which is still colonized by COVID-19, coronavirus, and spike protein filling up our intestines, our small intestines in the middle of our stomach, keeping us from being able to use the waste disposal system of our body. The colon, the liver, the lymphatics are part of our immune system, and when they're clogged, it doesn't matter what your antibodies are doing, neutralizing or non-neutralizing. We're just sticking something else on the spike proteins that released from the virus are traveling all over our body. So best wishes, good health, and love.